Hi girls. So, since we will no longer be in school for a while, I suppose, I think the best way to kind of go about business is to do these lessons online. Unfortunately, fortunately for me, but maybe unfortunately for you guys, I am not allowed to do any Skype calls, as you know. Here in Italy, they're doing a lot of calls and everything on Skype, and you can see your teacher and stuff. But from what I see with my brother, he keeps screenshotting his teacher's faces, so I'm quite glad it's just going to be a video kind of, no, a recording kind of thing. Anyway, so I hope that you are able to access this, and I'm glad to see, if you are now listening to this, that's really, really good. Well done. Now, what I'd like you to do is to first of all write in your books the title, which is profits, which is it's the new topic that we're going to be doing, the date of today, and it would be great if you could now spend a minute thinking about the term costs and what you think it refers to in our subject, so in business. Of course, this is something that it's quite a vague thing, but I'd like you to just kind of stop the video and think about it for a second, write down a definition that comes into mind, and yeah, you can stop now. Okay, so I don't know if you've stopped it, but if you have, well done. Thank you for doing that. Anyway, so I've got here like a little brief kind of definition. It's not really a definition, but it's kind of like an idea of what we're going to be looking at for the next unit. So a business may have different costs, from paying for raw materials to paying rent or electric bills and so on. Okay, so there are different costs, of course, that a business has to take into account. That's very intuitive. You're probably very aware of this. And we need to class these costs in different categories in order to be able to make efficient decisions that would be able to, of course, make the business thrive and survive and so on. Okay, so businesses need to, first of all, class these costs and know exactly what they refer to, and then they'll be able to kind of make good decisions on the basis of that, obviously. So this is going to be a very simple, quick, I think it's going to be really quick as well, yeah, lesson. And it's literally just an introductory lesson, so don't worry too much. But I would like you to take notes, even from today, in your business books, if you have them. And it doesn't really matter, to be honest. This lesson is really introductory, so I said it doesn't really matter what you get down today in terms of notes, but you need to start thinking about the progress that you'll be making, because these distance learning lessons might be a bit tricky, but at least we're starting to do something. So yeah, at the end of our unit, I said I would give you a test, but we're gonna have to see how that will work. But anyway, the important thing is that we know that everything we're doing now in relation to costs is something that we have to finish, because it is the last task of the unit that we've been doing. Okay, so after doing market segmentation, market research, and the design of the hats, we need to still do this section on costs, and then we're done pretty much with that unit. Anyway, so what exactly do you think is meant by the term cost? Costs are payments that businesses need to make in order to make goods and provide services. So just write down that definition. And yeah, make sure that you find you are being precise with what we're doing. So when you're writing down these things, remember that these bits of information will be useful for your write-ups. So just try and be as precise as possible. Okay, so task 1. Now, again, I will be asking you to pause this video at some point, but what you need to now kind of have a look at is think about what costs you think a company like Nando's might need to pay. Okay, when you kind of think, you need to kind of write down all the costs you think a business like Nando's faces, okay? And when you've done that, if possible, it would be great if you could then rank what you think would be the highest costs and kind of rank that from the highest to the lowest. So just try and have a think about that, and please write them down again in your books, and that will be pretty much, I'll give you about 6 minutes, something like that. So if you could please pause this down. I don't know if you will be doing it, but you should be. So please pause this and write down the costs of Nando's, please. Okay. I'm going to move on, but I'm imagining that you have done that. So it is really important in business that we differentiate between two main types of costs that I'm sure that you'll have heard of before. And this is because it helps the business owner know if they are making or losing money. So it's really important that we know the definitions of the terms fixed costs and the definition of the term variable cost. So as you probably can imagine, fixed costs refer to those costs that do not change with an amount of output a business produces. Okay, so pretty much a fixed cost is something that you pay every time. It will be the same amount. Like for instance, rent, I mean, unless there will be a change in the future, but for, let's say for a whole 12 months, rent is a good example of a fixed cost because it will likely not change dramatically over the course of 12 months. And then we've got, for instance, things like salaries, yeah, or wages. They all count as fixed costs because they do not change with the amount of output produced. By output, we mean by the amount of things that the business sells, okay, or produces. So a variable cost, on the other hand, is a cost that will change with how much the business produces, okay? So, of course, if I increase my production, I will have to spend a bit more money on specific things like equipment or like unit costs, like input costs. Like for instance, if I'm Cadbury's, right, and I am producing a lot of chocolate, I will be spending money on things like cocoa, on things like the wrapping paper, on things like I would say equipment could be actually fixed costs. So let me think about that. Let's forget about equipment for a minute. But yeah, about all these things that change, that vary with how much we are selling, if that makes sense. Okay, so the more chocolate I sell, the more I will be paying for things like cocoa or like dairy milk and so on. Okay, if that makes sense. I mean, it's all very intuitive, I'm sure, but it's just a good introduction to the new topic. Now, categorizing costs. So the second task is basically I will ask you to take the costs that you identified in task 1 and to try and categorize them into either them being fixed or variable costs based on the definitions that you've just been given. Okay? Now, when you've done that, so you literally write down in your books fixed costs and then variable costs. You write down all the examples of fixed costs that you came up with and all the ones of the variable costs that you came up with. And when you finish doing that, I have a stretch question here for you to do. Do any of your costs not seem fit properly in either category? Make a note of them, and then maybe you can email me, or even just maybe you can probably write that on Google Classroom somehow, but I would just email me. So if there's something that you're a little bit confused by, you can definitely email me or whatnot, yeah, and we can try and see where that category would fit. Now, I told you this was going to be quite a brief lesson, and it definitely is a lot quicker than I thought. I mean, imagine how long it would have taken me to get to this point here if we were in class, but of course, because we're not in class at the moment, I can see that all the kind of interruptions that I normally get basically reduce a lot of the time. Basically would normally add up to a lot of the time that I would spend asking you to be quiet and sit down. But anyway, that's not the case anymore, so we're kind of going to the end of the lesson. Again, this is a very brief lesson, so I don't think they're all going to be this quick, but yeah. Task 3 is basically something you need to complete by Wednesday. It's really simple. It's just like a very, just a very simple kind of introductory exercise. So what you need to do is basically you need to identify which of these here would be your fixed and variable costs. So I'm going to post this sheet here on Google Classroom, so have a look at that. But yeah, I'm not going to read this for you guys, so you please read the text and then have a look at these possible costs and try to class them. I don't know why you don't really need to look at this column there unless you do the extensions. So if you have some costs that are left over, actually you don't need to know how they would be called, but basically if you think that some of the costs do not necessarily go into the fixed cost column or the variable cost column, just kind of add them in this third little bit here. You can put like a I don't know, costs with like a question mark or something, and we'll be having a look at this on Wednesday. So yeah, don't worry about it too much. And to be honest, that is pretty much all we would have done if this was our normal Friday lesson. So yeah, it's pretty brief, but yeah, I hope you guys are all well. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to miss school quite a bit. Yeah, it's kind of getting to the point where it's getting quite boring here. But yeah, anyway, I will be in touch, so just let me know what you're doing, let me know if you've got any issues, and yeah, just email me in that case. Thank you very much, and speak to you soon.